Alright everyone, welcome back to the ARC 2026 series, to episode 2. For those of you who are new here, my name is Shriyan Sabedi, you can call me Shri. And essentially this is a whole series in which I'll be documenting me and my team's journey throughout the American Rocketry Challenge for the 2026 season. And essentially, what happened in the intro episode was it just gave you a behind the scenes update of what happened in the summer and really how this whole series is going to work out. If you're interested in that, you can go on the link below and I can assure you that the introduction is pretty fire. So check it out. Getting to the point of today we're going to be talking about really how we have changed up our design from last year and anything that's upcoming that you should be looking out for and that we should be looking out for too. Starting with is just the reason why we changed our design philosophy essentially. And really, not philosophy, but as to how we design our rocket. So, last year when we launched our rockets, we had a 3-fin design. This is because our altitude target was a lot higher and our rockets needed to carry a lot more payload mass, and to adjust for that, our rocket was a lot heavier. So the problem that led with was that we were forced to use a 3-fin design. Of course, you could have got away with 4, but for the design that I made and the team made, we were using a 3-fin design. The inherent problem was we weren't really experienced in CAD, so we lacked the skills to really make any fin jigs, and our eyeball alignment just didn't really work out very well. Even if we used pre-slotted tubes, because we use it through the wall fin method, is essentially in which you have a fin and you just have an extender piece like a small tab, and that goes into the motor mount tubing and that all glues in together. It's just essentially just a way of making the rocket stronger, and for us it didn't align well. Even though we thought it aligned very well for some of them, it just didn't, and we lost out on a lot of performance. This was evaluated through lots of slow motion video and video from our rockets and inherent rocketry knowledge, and just by looking at our footage we were able to decipher that there was just an inconsistent amount of performance loss, and this we found out throughout later in the season. And also the reason why we changed it up was even if you use like a simple rocket design, your rocket is going to become inconsistent over a longer period of time. This is usually due to like wear and tear, and I'm sure there's a lot more better ways in which you can explain that, but that's primarily one of the reasons why. And also, our rockets, like, the amount of epoxy that was wasted, or just, it was just all over the place. Like, the epoxy was all over the place. Like, the fillets, which are like essentially like teaser here, like this where the fins get strengthened by, it was just covered in epoxy, and it was not good. It wasn't always clean. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't always clean, and this would vary from rocket to rocket, and this just caused so many differences across all our rockets. So if you launched two different rockets, well, 2 of the same rockets designed, but since you know we had different fillet radiuses and etc., there were different rockets, we had inherently different numbers that we were going off of. So that leads into this season, and I already teased it. I designed a whole 3D printed fin can along with the team, on which this is purely modular, in which we can swap out this whole red section you see here from the airframe. So for example, if the rocket's fins got damaged, you won't be losing out to the airframe. You can just replace this whole fin can. For this rocket, this is mainly a backup. I'll talk about it more later, but just diving into the specs, we use a 4-fin design. The reason why we use a 4-fin design is because this year's altitude constraint is a lot lower, and the rocket doesn't need to have as much payload mass as it did earlier. This is a PET-G printed fin can, and the reason why we use PET-G is because PET-G is really high heat resistant and humid resistant. Last year we used PLA for our initial flights of the season, and that melted away, like literally in a hot, humid day it melted. So that was one big issue, and that did also cause, you know, of course, rocket spinning a lot. So we lost a lot of performance from that, and this is a lot stronger and it's a lot better for the longer flight period. Even for last year, it worked really well for a long amount of time. So how this worked is essentially this doesn't use through the wall. It uses this coupler mechanism, and this this red part acts like as a tube, and you just have fins that are filleted on or just connected via CAD. In the CAD software, you can see I don't know if you can focus that well, but if you see this big lump, this is all merged together. And essentially you have a motor mount assembly, and you can take this whole thing apart along with the shock cord, and you can repurpose the shock cord, of course, and you can repurpose this whole airframe if the rocket were to crash and this part were to break. The reason why this rocket isn't modular, this specific version of it, is because I was worried with the actual modular design that here, when you used to pull on it, because there's only 3 screws, right? They were strong here, and the reason why I only have 3 screws and not 4 is that this whole side is going to have a rail guide attached to it. So this place can't really have a screw, and I did try having a screw, and it just didn't work out at all. So the problem was that, coming back here, if I like pulled on this, well, this worked earlier, but when I pulled on it, it was a big seam that opens up, and that just was structurally not good. Air can get in there, and then at worst case scenario, which probably won't happen, but it could have, like, you know, it could rip the rocket apart, because this rocket will be going at 2/10 of the speed of sound. So that was one just concern, and really it's just also performance consistency. You don't know how much air is going in it. So really, any measure in which I can descriptively measure, or any ways that the rocket can be affected in, I just mitigated it by just lightly gluing it in with super glue, and that is where I went wrong. You don't glue stuff where it shouldn't be glued. And I did use a very small amount, but now it's just stuck, and that is essentially close enough to this. This uses epoxy for the retention, but this uses screws and a bit of super glue on this one edge where the rail guides are, so this wouldn't pull out. So for next time, we're gonna try to find a solution here later on, but for now this is glued on together. But this design is purely modular, and both of the recovery systems are partially done. We yet still have to finish our payload systems and the recovery bulkhead and coupler mechanism, which is pretty easy to do. That'll be done around like the next coming week. And to go further on this, the launch is going to be scheduled in about like 2 weeks from now. We're either launching on the 26th or the 27th, or sorry, the 27th or the 28th. This is because we want a really sort of like an early start to the season, and I really just want to be able to validate the strength of this whole fin can mechanism. Although this is comparable to the strength of last year's mechanism, we just want to structurally see how well this will perform and how can we improve the rocket design as early as possible if there were to be any errors. So really that's the big updates, and really thank you for tuning in today. I don't really have much to say anymore. This was pretty much all the updates that we have, and what to expect is, of course, maybe an update the day before launch. It'll be a quick one, probably like a minute or two, in which I just talk about, oh, this is going to happen, this is a complete design, etc., etc. And just thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Shreyan Svedi. You can call me Shri. And this just wraps it up for episode 2.